Al-Ghazali, the thinker who linked money to morality. When most people trace the roots of economic thinking, they usually sprint toward names like Adam Smith, Karl Marx, or perhaps Aristotle if they remember their history classes. But there is a quieter, older story that rarely gets told in Western narratives. Nearly 1,000 years ago, before capitalism had a name, and centuries before central banks or stock exchanges, a Muslim scholar looked at the money systems of his age and issued a warning that still echoes through every recession, bubble, and scandal we see today. He argued that when money loses its moral compass, societies don't just stumble financially, they begin to decay from the inside out. And judging by the crises of our modern world, he may have understood us far better than we assume. Where money, power, and history collide, and nothing is ever as simple as it looks. To understand Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, one of the most influential thinkers of the Islamic Golden Age, you have to picture a world that feels strangely familiar and yet profoundly different. It's around 1100 CE. Europe is fragmented, poorer, and still climbing out of the rubble of the early Middle Ages, while the Islamic world stretches across a vast and connected civilization, from Al-Andalus in Spain through North Africa and the Levant to Persia and beyond, filled with wealthy cities and busy marketplaces. Baghdad, Damascus, Cairo, and other urban centers are not only political hubs, but also intellectual and financial powerhouses, where caravans and ships moved silk, spices, textiles, precious metals, and ideas across continents, and scholars argue fiercely about law, philosophy, astronomy, medicine, and ethics with a sophistication that would shape global knowledge for centuries. In that flourishing world of booming commerce and rising inequality, Al-Ghazali emerges as a rare kind of thinker, part jurist, part theologian, part philosopher, and part critic of human behavior, the type of mind capable of discussing the purpose of the soul and the purpose of a currency system with the same seriousness. Born in 1058 in Persia, he rose quickly through scholarly ranks and by his mid-30s held one of the most prestigious teaching positions in the Muslim world. But what made him truly distinctive was not his status, it was his refusal to accept that prosperity automatically meant progress, because he sensed something dangerous developing beneath the glitter of wealth. He saw the markets expanding, fortunes growing, and social hierarchies hardening, and he felt that society was becoming obsessed with money while drifting away from meaning. An economy that looked successful on the surface but felt hollow underneath. And he started asking a question that still haunts civilizations. What happens when a society gets rich faster than it gets wise? To answer that, he turned his attention to money itself, and this is where most modern viewers get surprised, because Al-Ghazali wasn't only a religious scholar speaking in moral metaphors, he was an early analyst of money as a system that shapes behavior, incentives, trust, and the long-term health of a society. Where later economists often treated money as a neutral tool to be studied through equations, Al-Ghazali examined how money changes the human mind and social relationships, how it can encourage cooperation or poison it, how it can support stability or quietly erode it. At the core of his view was a simple but radical idea. Money is not meant to be worshipped, hoarded, or displayed as a measure of human worth. It is a tool, nothing more, a facilitator of exchange. To illustrate that, he compared money to something like a mirror. A mirror has no value by itself. Its value comes from what it reflects. And money, in his view, is similar. Its power doesn't lie in the metal, the stamp, or the shine, but in what it enables people to trade, build, and coordinate together. That might sound like modern economic language, but he was writing in the 11th century, while much of Europe still defined wealth mainly through land ownership or war plunder. And from that foundation, he delivered one of his most striking insights. Hoarded money is dead money. Wealth locked in chests, hidden in rooms, or buried in courtyards might make the hoarder feel safe, but to Al-Ghazali it was socially destructive, because idle wealth doesn't circulate, doesn't pay workers, doesn't fund trade, doesn't support families, and doesn't generate productive activity. It freezes the bloodstream of society, creating scarcity not because resources vanish, but because circulation is blocked. And this is where his argument becomes systemic rather than merely moral. When the wealthy hoard, markets tighten, prices can distort, opportunities shrink, and ordinary people suffer. not always because the society lacks resources, but because access to those resources becomes choked by fear, greed, or prestige. From there, Al-Ghazali moved to another idea that feels almost like a direct commentary on modern financial bubbles: speculation destroys trust. He condemned the behaviors of merchants and traders who manipulated prices, engineered artificial shortages, exploited crises, or profited without contributing, actions that create wealth for a few while weakening the marketplace for everyone else. To him, that kind of profit was not cleverness, it was corruption, and corruption was not just an individual sin, it was a contagion. Once dishonest behavior is rewarded, others copy it. Once exploitation becomes normal, it becomes expected. And when enough actors believe the game is rigged, trust collapses. Now, here's the nuance. Al-Ghazali was not anti-business, not anti-market, and not calling for a world of forced poverty. He supported trade and viewed markets as natural and necessary, and he recognized that wealth could be meaningful, even noble, when earned honestly and used responsibly. His target was dishonest trade, cheating with false weights, concealing defects, lying about quality, manipulating information, or taking advantage of people who lacked knowledge or power. He understood long before modern terminology that markets function only when participants trust one another, and once trust is damaged, the economy follows. What modern economists call information asymmetry, transaction costs, and moral hazard, Al-Ghazali described through the language of integrity, justice, and social stability. But the mechanism is the same. Deception adds friction to every exchange, and too much friction breaks the system. Another of his core insights was about labor and the dignity of work. He argued that effort-based earning builds character and strengthens society, while wealth gained through manipulation or exploitation is spiritually dangerous and socially corrosive. This isn't just moral preaching, it's a practical diagnosis. Societies become resilient when most people believe their work matters and their contributions are rewarded fairly. Societies become fragile when people believe the easiest path to wealth is not creating value, but gaming the system. When manipulation is rewarded, talent is wasted, and cynicism spreads. And Al-Ghazali didn't stop at criticizing individuals. He also delivered a powerful critique of state behavior, especially state interference with currency. In the medieval world, rulers often diluted coinage, reducing the gold or silver content of coins to stretch budgets, effectively extracting value from the public through stealth inflation. Al-Ghazali condemned this as theft because it violated the trust that makes money work in the first place. Currency, in his view, is a collective agreement. People accept it because they believe it represents stable value. When rulers tamper with it, they don't merely change policy, they break the social contract. The poor are hit hardest because they receive weaker money first and have the least ability to protect themselves. Markets destabilize because prices become uncertain, trade becomes suspicious, and once again, the theme returns. Trust is the foundation. He believed the state had a role in maintaining fair markets and protecting basic justice, but that role was limited and moral in nature. Leaders should safeguard the economy, not manipulate it for short-term survival or political gain. He warned that unjust rulers destroy prosperity faster than any foreign army because they rot confidence from the inside. These warnings weren't abstract philosophy, they came from real political behavior. In Al-Ghazali's lifetime, fragmentation and power struggles increased, dynasties fought for legitimacy, governors pushed for more revenue, and when rulers felt their grip weakening, the first place they squeezed was the economy. Taxes rose to painful levels, merchant assets were seized, coinage was altered, borrowing grew reckless, and future generations inherited the consequences. Al-Ghazali argued that these tactics don't solve underlying problems, they spread corruption downward like poison. When rulers cheat, merchants feel justified in cheating. When institutions lack integrity, individuals stop seeing any reason to act responsibly. Soon, the entire economic order, from palace treasury to neighborhood market, turns into a chain reaction of distrust. His conclusion was stark: a society can survive poverty, but it cannot survive corruption. Economic collapse in his framework is rarely about literally running out of money or resources. It is about the breakdown of confidence, the invisible glue holding transactions, contracts, currencies, and institutions together. Once trust erodes, even a wealthy nation becomes brittle. That's why his warning about currency manipulation feels so modern. Debasement, in his view, wasn't merely a technical adjustment, it was deception in metal form, and he predicted what we now recognize from history. If a state abuses its currency long enough, people will abandon it, preferring stronger foreign money or alternative stores of value, because money is ultimately a belief system. When belief dies, the system fails. 1,000 years later, the same pattern appears in every era of currency breakdown and inflation panic. People flee their own money when they no longer trust the promises behind it. But Al-Ghazali's insights go deeper than coins and taxation, because he understood something about human nature that many modern mathematical economic models struggle to admit. People hoard out of fear, speculate out of greed, cheat when they believe they can get away with it, and rationalize unethical profits because everyone else is doing it. Money is easy to manipulate, and that temptation grows stronger when systems reward the wrong behavior. From this, he delivered one of his most powerful principles.